Okay, today on Radical Inuk, we're gonna go do some things. Those things will be, well, first of all, let's let Juno off her leash. Juno, come here. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. Alright, so what we're gonna be working on right now is we're doing some metal work. Strip this, get it ready for the bike. Next up, we're going to finish up these. So I'm going to do a bit of grinding, a bit of welding, a bit of drilling, a bit of cutting. It'll be fun. So I'll come back to the video when those are done. So see you in a bit. Okay, so I should give you a bit of an update. I started with the grinder. And as you can see, I have run out of discs. I need to pick up more discs. So it turns out the grinder was a shitty way to do it. But the Hobart 12 CI plasma cutter, oh my goodness, it's a dream. It literally just, that actually I did with the angle grinder, most of the cuts. But the cuts that I'm doing with the plasma cutter, you're going right through really quickly. I do need to pick up actually a respirator that I can wear under my welding mask because I have two things for grinding and cutting. I have the P100 particulate mask, which is decent. This doesn't come with the welding shield. I was working on one a while ago to 3D print one, but for now I'm just using the welding mask as is. So it's kind of annoying. I need a respirator because inhaling all of this hot paint residue is kind of shitty. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to continue just cleaning up all of the parts off of here. So as you can see, I just plasma cut straight through the parts where it's welded, and that's going to be clean. We'll clean it all up, fill in the parts where I've gouged the steel, and hopefully this will still be strong. We'll see about that, but we'll fill in the welds. It'll hopefully be durable enough. Like this, I definitely got to fill in and then grind so it's smooth. But it'll do for now until I pick up some tubular steel and a pipe bender. It turns out actually they're not that expensive, but having a pipe bender and being able to bend the pipes into a specific shape. The idea for this is going to be, this is where we'll mount a bracket for the rear swing arm, which on the mini bike will be going somewhere around here currently. So we're chopping this and we're going to put a rear swing arm probably at a central point. We'll have a plate that goes across and we'll mount maybe a circular piece of steel to throw a rod through that we can then attach the swing arm on a bearing. But it'll be extending probably a little bit further than this. We might need a different chain. Or we'll keep it the same. It really depends on how it's set up. Because we definitely need room for the CVT, because the CVT or the torque converter will go where the centrifugal clutch is right here. So there's a primary, secondary, or vice versa, however it's laid out. But the torque converter will be attached to the engine output. Secondary will then be connected to the jack shaft, which is where the chain is connected to. So you can actually get larger tooth gears for the rear to increase your torque. But we're going to try to look at something interesting for the bike. I have a prerequisite with this, with the 196, with the Stage 1 kit. I wanted to basically be able to go, I want to say about 60 kilometers an hour, which is fairly reasonable. Once we put the, was it the TFB, Tillotson mechanical fuel injector carb, as opposed to just the regular carb that's on there. Like there is the Mikuni carb, which is supposed to be better, but I'm not too sure about that in terms of running it in the winter. Like I want to be able to ride this in the winter still. So this is the back area. Obviously everything is now melted. If you look around, there's a little bird. But this area is super wet right now. Hopefully that'll be fixed as it gets drier and everything melts. But the Secan project, I found some doors. So the doors will be in soon. So once the doors, once I'm able to pick those up, we're gonna take this big chunk of steel, we're gonna recycle this into something. I'm thinking maybe a hot forge for this guy here, this handy dandy diesel forced air burner. So there's a 1/2-inch steel plate on the bottom, which will hopefully be durable enough to last long term, and we'll be able to put it in an insulated forge using that scrap steel here as the exterior component, because we're going to fill it with insulation basically. More than likely a mix of, well, we want refractory kiln cement, which is, I have some Portland cement. I'm going to try to mix it. I can't see if I can mix it with aluminum silicate or whatever high temperature stuff I can. Video going forward is going to be this oven. We're going to try to melt some aluminum with it and do a casting of something. So we can't do very big castings. It's going to have to be something pretty small, but we'll see what ends up happening with that. This, I'm not going to have time for. I'm going to have to come back to this later, but I need to strip all the paint off. Weld a bracket here. I don't actually have straight steel here, so this is going to be a really rough hack in terms of what it'll be. It'll just be a grasper, but I might even find a better way to do it. I do need to do something and fabricate another thing for an ongoing project that is actually work related. We have this cooler. So I did try to pour some aircrete when it was much colder, but it didn't set right. Basically, the air bubbles from the SLSA, I'll read that out actually. This sodium lauryl sulfoacetate, basically it's lots of bubbles. It'll make lots of bubbles rather. This impromptu stirring stick is not going to cut it. We need something that will stir all of the air bubbles with the cement really well, because I can give you a couple of examples of what not to do. So this is off of the deck, but it's basically a piece of the aircrete that I had poured. It's kind of shitty because what ended up happening is this is broken now, but it wasn't before. Basically stepped on it, but this is all that's left from the first attempt. So the reason it didn't work was it was basically like -10 overnight. So I'd left this outside to set and hopefully cure into a piece of aircrete. The problem was all of the water and the bubbles floated to the surface, and all that was left was the cement mix, which is not what we want. So what we instead want to do is we're going to make a proper mixer, because we need to mix the Portland cement with the water first and create a slurry. From there, we want to mix all of the bubbles that we've made with the SLSA, with the aircrete, with the Portland cement mix, and mix it so well that it's impossible for it to come apart. Now, we want to do it also above, I'm going to say 5 to 10 degrees. So it's got to be warm overnight where we can just let it sit and last for a long time. So this is the mix from before. As you can see, it's starting to settle all the water. There's a layer, boundary layer underneath where the SLA is basically just floating. That needs to be fixed. So the thing I'm thinking is I'm going to use this the way it is, or I throw it in the parts washer and use it as a soapy medium, which means the pump will probably more than likely have a tough time. But I think I might as well just pick up Varsol, because that's a decent medium for putting in a parts cleaner. I do want to look at heating it so it's warmer, so that when you are basically cleaning your parts, everything will come off, like the dirt and grime. Like for example, if this was a part that I was cleaning, it'd be a shitty time, but it's possible the way it is. But if it's hotter, or rather the Varsol and water mix was a lot warmer, it'd do a much better job. So I'm going to continue cleaning this up, and yeah, we'll get all of the little knickknacks off of it, and we'll look at welding. But before I go, I will show you what type of steel we're looking at putting. This is some hefty steel, so we're going to be welding that to the swing arm, and I have basically that and this big piece. So those two pieces will be used in some capacity for the rear swing arm. But the idea is going to be, you throw a notch here, weld that in as a bracket that you can mount something to it, specifically the bearing attachment. Then to the rear, I'll throw another plate that'll extend off. We'll see what ends up happening, because it's probably going to more than likely be probably the midpoint, somewhere in the middle, because it just needs to clear the wheel once we have the wheel on. we'll have to figure out where the chain's going and how the chain's going to travel with the rear swing arm as it comes up and down. But the general idea is somewhere about this point, there's going to be a mount point for the suspension, which I'm thinking I'm just going to steal it off of a dead snowmobile, which the front shocks will be more than adequate to go on there. It's not like it needs to be racing performance, you know, spring shock. Just be normal. It's just a rear suspension for a mini bike. Like the bike itself weighs about maybe 200 pounds. It's pretty light. Anyway, peace.